All right, everyone, welcome to our CCNA Cyberops course, or class meeting, actually, it is the 21st of February, 2019. I thank everyone for being here. There's only one of me on this end right now. I don't talk to myself too much, but I do appreciate everyone being here. And we were just, before the recording started, talking a little bit about where I kind of see this class positioned. And one of the places I see it positioned is as an ending course, or your survey course. Not a survey course, it's your I'm trying to help me out here, fellas. Not survey, but your final course that kind of encapsulates everything you do in a security program. So I really see your students could use this course in the last semester of their 2-year degree program, at a time when they've already had, at least Cisco 1 and 2, the introduction to security class, and an introduction to Windows, or Windows and a Linux class. That way they're at this class and they have a good understanding of Linux, Windows, and basic security concepts, so that they can then learn what this class is trying to do, which is to teach you to be a first level cybersecurity analyst. Any questions, Derek or Brett, on that idea of placing it there, and kind of, is that where you're thinking about putting it in your curriculum?
I think, go ahead,
Brett,
yeah.
First.
There you go.
Go ahead, Brett.
I think that's kind of where they're putting it on with us. At least that's where I'm trying to, and that's where I'm trying to ask them to put it.
Okay, excellent. And Derek, how about you?
Yeah, I think they're trying to push this to like near the end of the curriculum, so that hopefully the first few classes they're developing those basic skills. So this will be one of the ones they finish it, or a separate certificate itself.
I do actually think that's a good point too, Derek. Welcome, George. How are you doing? A good point too, and I'm gonna unmute you, George, and then you can mute yourself because you're muted on entry. So I just want you to know you were muted. But if you want to speak up, we're talking about where we're going to place this class in curriculums. I think too, another great place is if you decide to put it in a certificate program. If you do CCNA Security and CCNA Cyberops, you really kind of got two different certificates, because the CCNA Security is how to implement and manage security on devices, whereas the CCNA Cyberops is much more about how do I monitor and look for incidents, instead of that actual implementation of the security controls. So, George, what are you thinking about in your particular program putting this class? Is it going to be second year, last semester? Is it going to be a Con Ed class? How are you kind of looking at positioning this class?
I'm not quite sure yet. I'm working with Joseph Can on that.
Okay, all right. Well, like I said, we were kind of thinking that it's a good place to put it, be toward the end, after they've had a couple, CCNA 1 and 2, again, some Linux classes, Windows classes, and so on. So now what I want to do, go ahead.
I would agree on that, because then they get the experience of understanding what they're talking about within the CyberOps class.
Right.
And if you don't have that understanding of the CCNA or the Cisco router switches and whatnot, you're going to be kind of lost.
I think too, more than any other course, this course also requires other non-Cisco knowledge. Chapter 2 is Windows, so the students really need to have a Windows class and understand a great deal about Windows before hitting Chapter 2. I think Chapter 3 with Linux, they really need to understand a large amount about Linux. And then in 4, 5, and 6, that's all CCNA information. So a review of it in a lot of ways, but looking at it in how it deals with analyzing cybersecurity incidents, which are pretty neat. So in Chapter 1, I just want to hit a couple things, folks. I'm going to talk today about a little bit in Chapter 1, then I'm going to talk about the environment for your labs, and then we're going to discuss certifications. So to begin with, a lot of this is talking about different types of attacks, ransom companies. It talks a little bit about excuse me, about the Stuxnet worm and its attack that was carried out on the Iranian centrifuges. And so a lot of different items there. But really what I want to go over as we go through here is not this, because this is stuff you would see if you've already been through Security Plus, but kind of what this class is looking at. I am going to call out one thing, and that is I would make sure your students know what PII is, personally identifiable information. Make sure they know what these are, these different parts, because that could show up somewhere. In addition, make sure you know that it is PHI is protected health information. I've seen it now in two different places. One of it was the review book for this class. Actually, it wasn't the review book, it was an INE class on CyberOps, and they called it personal health information. That is incorrect. It is protected health information. I've also seen that same mistake in the CompTIA CYSA Plus study guide that I purchased. So make sure they know it's protected health information. Just bringing that up so you'll know that for your students and for yourself as you go forward. When you look at what we're trying to do in this class, we're going to try to make students into a level 1 SOC analyst, so a Security Operations Center analyst. In a SOC, you have people, technology, and processes. So you've got the people who are analyzing and watching whatever technology they happen to have, whatever SIM, which is Security Information and Event Management System they happen to have. They're looking over all this incoming information, and a level 1 SOC analyst is supposed to be able to determine, is this an actual attack, or is this an actual attack, or is it a false positive, or is it something that we need to investigate but it's not serious. So their job is to see whether or not something needs to be sent up to level 2. So when you look at how the people in a SOC are structured, you've got these tier 1 analysts, and that's really what we're trying to prepare our students for in this particular class. But they look at those alerts and verify that an incident has occurred, and then they will forward that up to the incident responder at tier 2. And they start investigating it and advising remediation. What do we need to do? Do we need to segment part of our network to stop this malware? Do we need to monitor it? Is it something that needs to, we need to immediately implement our entire incident response team and bring everyone in? Is it that serious? So that's kind of the level 2. And then after that, if the level 2 person is seeing something that they can't fully understand, or they want to have it looked at by someone who's a subject matter expert, they send that up to the level 3. So that's your SMEs, your subject matter experts, and your hunters, people who are actively trying to figure out new flaws, new zero-day attacks, new types of ways that networks can be exploited. And then above all that is the manager, SOC manager, who runs everything and would be a major point of contact in the incident response plan, because they would obviously go to other C-level. And the SOC manager is probably not a C-level person, but they report to the CISO, the Information Security Officer. And so they would have to go to the CISO if there was a major event that was taking place. Any questions about the SOC? Have any of you worked in a SOC before? I have not. I've never worked in a SOC, so I'm interested if any of you've done it. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I've worked in one when I first started off. It's pretty much you're saying you're mostly looking at alert or taking calls from users who are having issues and logging tickets. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've worked in a SOC as a level 2 engineer, and I've worked DoD SOC as well.
Okay. And Brett, you said you were level 2 and a SME, or just?
No, I worked hand in hand with the SME.
Okay. Cool. That's very neat. Like I said, I've seen SOCs. I've never worked in one. It depends on the size of and we'll talk later in the class about the different types of incident response teams. You've got, CSERTs, company teams, you've got products teams, you've got national teams, you've got all kind of those. We'll talk a little more about those and talk about how, the SOC is part of that process. So here again, tier 1 monitors, opens tickets, basic threat mitigation. If it's something they can mitigate easily, they'll just send it out to support and have support mitigate it. deep investigation, advising different remediation is tier 2, and then tier 3 is going up into in-depth knowledge, threat hunting, and then working to create preventive measures for the entire company that can be implemented through their security policies and their security plan. Now, technologies in the SOC, we're going to talk about these a great deal, but the big one is this security information and event management system, whatever you happen to use, that can bring in all types of information from different systems. NetFlow, it's looking at packet captures, it's looking at IPS, IDS logs, it's looking at some of the ISA, Cisco Identity Services architecture things coming in, and taking all of that information and correlating it and trying to keep up with events that are taking place, trying to correlate. Okay, I've seen a sudden, you're looking at net flows, I've seen a sudden increase in outgoing connections to a particular, or outgoing DNS connections. And then trying to figure out, correlating that with what happened, or maybe something happened on the network that would show that, someone's doing DNS tunneling. So trying to do all that together. So it's a very complicated system, mainly because it's trying to bring in so many different items to do that. How many of you, what SIMs have y'all worked with out there in the real world, Derek and Brett?
When I worked in a SOC, we didn't really have a true SIM. You just looked at a whole bunch of garbage every day. But yeah,
that makes it very difficult. That makes it very difficult because you have to do the correlation yourself. That's a tough site to be in there. How about you, Brett?
I'm trying to, I don't remember the name of the software. We did use something, but I don't recall.
Okay. Honestly, some companies roll their own. Some companies make their own and have their own systems and processes. The reason for that is those SIM systems aren't cheap. They're very expensive. So, and we'll talk much more about those as we move forward. So, here's some different things here. The Cisco product security incident response team, which is responsible for remediating and looking at any types of incidents or any types of exploits that relate to a single product. Computer security incident response team, that would be the team for the entire company. And then you get on down, there's actually managed services for people who do outsourced computer incident response and even outsourced SOCs, so that you can have them monitoring your network for you. I like this one just because, knock on some wood, when I put in my new data center last May, since May of last year, I've had 0 days of downtime, none whatsoever. And so I'm very proud of that. I'm hoping I can make an entire year in May with no downtime at all. So knock on wood, and I may have to kill a couple chickens, sacrifice it to the computer gods, and try to keep it up for a full year. But so far it's good. But look at some of these different numbers that for 5 nines, you can be down no more than 2.56 minutes of unplanned, unscheduled downtime. That's pretty phenomenal when you think about it over a full year. And if you're doing 7 nines, you're looking at 3.15 seconds, which is insane. Somebody tell me, as you go from the 99.8 down to the 7 nines, what's the biggest way to get more uptime? Or what's the biggest item that you have to use in order to get more uptime?
Probably biggest thing is money.
Money. It's money because you think about, as you move up these nines, you have to do redundant systems, you got to do hot sites, you got to do, it's all about money. I can give you a very, very redundant system, but there's still going to be times that it could go down. There's no way to have absolute guarantee, but you can get close if you're willing to spend enough money. All right, this is a really cool activity you can do as you go through, and you've already done it because y'all come through chapter 1. Real quickly, I am going to talk about CCNA Cyberops certification and the CYSA. Now, they've got this wrong. What happened was CompTIA came out with the Cybersecurity Analyst, CSA, and suddenly they found out someone already owned a certification that had the CSA nomenclature for it, or acronym, and so they had to go back around and change it to I think CYSA Plus, Cybersecurity Analyst Plus. I just got this certification on Monday of this week, and I can tell you right now that if you study for and pass both the Cyberops test, you can spend about a week studying for the CYSA Plus, and you can pass the CYSA Plus. So this is really good that this one course can prepare you to get both certifications. I am extremely confident in saying that because, like I said, I did it. In fact, when I was studying for the CYSA Plus, I got a question, and I won't tell you what it is because I obviously had to break NDA, but I got a question on the CYSA Plus that wasn't anywhere on the study guide but was covered in Cyberops. So I would strongly recommend to your students that if they can afford it, to get the CYSA Plus in addition to Cyberops because of the overlap. Now, it's not a cheap exam at all, but it's actually carrying some pretty decent weight in the industry right now, which is nice. So what I want to do is jump back real quickly and make sure that you understand the exam. Everyone knows that Cyberops is a 2-test exam, all right? So it is a 2-test exam, which is 210, 250, which is SEC fundamentals, and it is 210, 255 SecOps. Now, I cannot tell you, this class is not broken down into chapters 1 through 8 are Sec Fund, and chapters 9 through 13 are SecOps. That's not the way it works. It's spread throughout, all right? And at first, I didn't think that was a good idea, but after having taken both exams, I actually think it is a good idea because there's some questions in both that overlap, all right? Hopefully all of you do this, when you get ready to take an exam, you go to the exam site and you actually go and look at the exam topics. And what I actually do is I just print all these out and make sure I know everything that's under them. So if your students can do that, and in fact, when you get the class format or the class that I'm going to give you, the class shell, I'm going to leave in here Dan Abrighetti's resources, and it has a link straight to the PDF that gives all of the Sec 210 information and all of the Sec 210, 255, and 210, 250, so that you go in here and you got to know what the CBSS 3.0, what these terms mean in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And you got to know what these are, FAT, NTFS. So all of these are items for the second test. So, this right here is the FAT 32, NTFS, MACE, all that, every bit of this, Microsoft Windows, that's chapter 2. And this is chapter 3. So, like I said, there's no, this chapter is this, this chapter is that. Because if you go back over to, go back over to 210, there's some information in here that's also related to Windows. I just have to find it. Oh, it's in here. Here it is. Define these terms as they pertain to Linux, processes, forks, permissions, syslinks. Define these terms as they pertain to Windows. So in other words, chapter 2 is information is on both 210, 250, and 210, 255. So you couldn't really split them apart as 2 separate chapters. It's all Windows, and these are the 2 items covered on 2 different tests.
Are those essay tests or the multiple choice or what?
These are multiple choice.
Okay.
These are multiple choice. Now the Cisco are all multiple choice. CYSA Plus, there's some actually having to look at instance and look at things and answer some questions, which are it was interesting. That was an interesting experience there. But it was everything that was in that was covered in Cyberops. So. But George, these are all choose 2, choose 3, or you may have a little mini scenario and choose information out of that. You may also get a question that gives you a log and has you look through that log, and then based upon the information provided in the item above, what is true, and then you have to pick 3 or pick 2. So those are, it's just like the CCNA exams. same type of thing, except for you don't really have the simulations like you do on the CCNA. Okay, the pure simulation, we're actually configuring something. Okay, any other questions on the actual content? So there's 2 exams. This class does prepare you for both, which is really good. It also prepares you for the CYSA Plus, which is excellent. All right. Well, now I want to talk to you about something else. I want to talk to you about, are you seeing the Word document I just put over here, or did it stay with my other item? Just it's not showing you the document, is it? Okay.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay, let me share the document then. And then we'll go back and share. All right, so now you should be seeing this document.
Yep.
When you go to do labs for this Cyberops class, there are 3 different ways now that the labs can be performed by your students. One is they can load VirtualBox locally, and I sent out the link to me going through lab 1. I think it's 1.1.1.2, where it's loading the VirtualBox and loading the VM. And for chapters 1 through 11, you only need 1 VM. You need just the Cyberops workstation VM to do all the labs, and you need a machine with Windows on it. So that's all you need for all the labs from 1 to 11. Then you need to add in, after that, a couple more virtual machines. That can be done locally using VirtualBox. Now, we'll talk about some caveats here in a minute, but if you do that, you are going to need machines that have pretty fast processors, a good amount of RAM, and a good amount of disk space. So that's one way to do it. You can host them locally in your own Netlabs if you have Netlabs. Do the 3 of you have Netlabs, or any of you have Netlabs?
Yeah, I have them.
All right, Derek's got it. Brett, do you have it? And George?
Yeah, we have it. I basically am using a local via our VirtualBox, and then I have a 500 gig USB drive where I keep all my VMs on.
That works too. George, do you have Netlabs?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you will all probably do Netlabs locally for your students. The last one is a new one, which is Netlabs hosted. You can actually purchase, your students can purchase access to the labs hosted by Netlabs for a fee of, I think, $39.95. We'll look at it in a second. But these are the 3 different ways that you can do the labs. All right, so let me stop this share. And I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to share. Oops. We'll close that. Go back to my main screen. All right, so now, if you look at an overview of the CCNA, the CCNA Cyberops overview, and I'm actually just going to open it here and see if I can get it open in the, oh, come on out. I'll probably get it opened here. All right, all I really want to show you here, this is just an overview that you can get out of the course resources. But the important thing to show you is down here, when you go to do, the labs. All right, you will notice that for basically labs 1 through, chapters 1 through 11, you only need 1 VM, that is the Cyberops workstation, running in VirtualBox, and you'll need about 7 gigs of disk space and 1 gig of RAM for that machine to run on yours. So above whatever your operating system is using, you'll need a gig. After that is when it gets a little bit different. So chapters 12 and 13, you need 4 VMs running. You need our workstation, which we already have installed. You need the Kali Linux VM, a Metasploitable VM, and a Security Onion VM. Now, there's 2 different Security Onion VMs. One of them is a low RAM usage or a lower RAM usage. And so there's just less things turned on. Then there's one that does 4 gigs. So you're looking here, if you're going to host these locally on your PCs, or if your students want to host these locally on their PCs at home, which they can download these and do that, they're going to need at least 7 gigs of RAM just for these VMs. And they're going to need 40 gigs of space let's say roughly 40 gigs of space on their hard drive to do this. So if your students, if you don't have Netlabs, and all of you do, so you're in a good position, but if you don't have Netlabs, this is going to be an issue for you in terms of the fact that you need to have machines that can run it locally in your environment. And if your students are online and had to do it at home themselves without Netlabs, they're going to have a machine that's pretty much a beast that's able to run this. Okay. Any questions about this? This is running it on VirtualBox on your local PCs, or your students running it on their PC at home. Any questions? Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I know another option you're able to look at. I know with AWS, you get that free tier account, but
Right.
I know there's an image for Kali Linux. So if you want to run it there, that's a good place to run it without killing your system.
You can. The thing about it is, with the labs that we have, those labs are using Kali Linux to attack the Metasploitable, and then looking at the results on the security onion. And so with the way you're setting up the, and honestly, Derek, you could run this in AWS if you could load all the machines and set up the virtual networking the correct way. But the way you set it up is they're running through each other. And so the Kali Linux box goes through the security onion and attacks the Metasploitable. And then that information is displayed in security onion's incident tools, basically. Yeah, you can run it, but it's not. They're not running in a silo. They're running together, working together. So there's a very particular lab setup that you have to go through, and I'll actually show you that when we get to chapter 12.
Okay, no problem.
Now, here's another question everyone always gives me: can I run it in VMware Workstation? You can. The images are not made for VMware Workstation. They're working on doing that, and there have been several instructors in the past who have converted them. I have some links to those, but I can't. If you want them, I'll give them out. I can't promise that they work because I didn't do the conversions myself. And for the purposes of what I teach in this course, I'm going to say you need to use VirtualBox because that's what the course wants, and that's how it's supported through Cisco. Okay, as far as a local solution. Now, of course, we do have this. We have your class, which is KFC CCNA Cyberops, and you've got all of the classes or all the different labs that you'd want to do. And it's a little different as far as a setup because we do have in our setup a Windows box, whereas on the local setup, there's no Windows box. You just use the host computer that is a Windows box to do the labs. In the Netlabs setup, there's actually a Windows box. Let me get it. It'll get started in a minute. I'll show it to you. I think I showed it to you last time, but I'll show it to you again. So you can do that locally. The last way you can do it, folks, is the newest way, and that is that there are actually Netlabs resources, and you can actually go in here and look at NDG as a service. And all you have to do is actually click to enroll now, and it will take you to their page. You put in your information, say I'm older or not, and then you can complete the enrollment. I think, like I said, it's $39.95. And then they actually have the ability from inside your class, they will be able to launch their labs. So they don't have to really go anywhere different. They'll just go inside. They'll open Netlabs in a new window, and it'll pop open their Netlabs. Okay. For me, it just popped open my Netlabs, but so pretty neat. So what are our three options? Somebody give me our three options for doing our labs.
I'll do them locally.
Okay, George, locally using VirtualBox.
Netlabs.
Netlabs locally.
NDG.
Yep, and then purchasing them from NDG. Exactly. So, and again, here's the lab that I went through on 1.1.1.4. It's on my YouTube channel, and I actually walk through every single bit of this and show you how to get everything. When you need to download the VM, there's actually a link in the lab that shows you, click here to get the image, and it will take you out, and it will let you get the VM image. So, thanks. That's how a cookie delivery. You can't get much better than that. Somebody walks in the office and hands you a drink and a cookie. Woohoo! So, questions about that? All right, excellent. I am very glad that that is clear. I do want to look at, okay, I'm jumping in this lab, so it should be pulled up now. You'll see in here now we've got a Win client, which is not in the other lab because we got Metasploitable, we got the Kali, Security Onion, and our workstation. And then there's a Win client so that you can do your the Windows labs, okay? And remember, if you are in here, just send Alt, Control, Alt, Delete is like that. So, pretty neat. I'm impressed. I will tell you this. This is not the thinnest of the clients that are thinnest of the tools for Netlabs. So it does take a little more horsepower on your lab than on your Netlabs servers than some pods. But it's nice to be able to do this. And remember too, folks, one thing about my Netlabs, make sure when you do a reservation, when you go to schedule a lab and you go into your class and you only see 4 or 5 different pods, don't forget to click this little arrow right here. There's 15 pods, so you should have plenty of space to do labs. We are sharing this with Dan Abrighetti's class, and he's got 25 in his class. So there's about 35 people using the labs for these Cyberops, so just be aware of that. Any questions on using my Netlabs? Now, I will tell you this, all of you who, if you're in this class and you're going to be teaching your class using the local installation of VirtualBox and your those VMs, I want you to do that in your local environment, and I want you to complete the labs, at least some of the labs in your local environment that way. Additionally, those of you in the meeting right now who have Netlabs, if you've already loaded the pods, I would like for you to do some of your labs in your pods there. But I do need you to do some of the labs in my Netlabs so I can prove that you've been doing labs. So please just do that for me so we'll have some proof that you did labs. But I do want you doing some on your own also, in your own system.
Kelly?
Yes, sir.
So when we go to Netacad, we download the PDF from there.
Right.
That is, they use different tools like IE Explorer instead of Netscape.
Right.
So when I did your labs, I went back and redid those and uploaded them from your document.
Okay.
And the only way we can get those documents from Netlabs is if we schedule
Right.
something and then go in and get the content. Is it okay if we use the one from Netacad or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you should. When you go in and do a lab in Netacad, you need to use that lab. You need to use this information because it could be changed from what's in the labs on our design for the local setup with virtual machines. Change slightly. They're not changed much, but there are some changes. So I would definitely use the ones that are inside of Netlabs.
So so when you're doing Netlabs, use the one in Netlabs. When you're going to do them locally and use the ones on Netacad, use those. Correct.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Okay. Yep. Also, I believe it used to be, and I don't know if you can still do this, but it used to be you could go and
I tried to do that and I couldn't find it.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
There it is, Preview Lab.
Okay.
So you can actually go and then download every single one of them. And so you could, before you get to, instead of having to schedule every single lab, you just had to go to every single one of them and preview it and then save that into a folder. So you can still do it. You just save it to a folder. Okay. All right, that's good to know. That's very good. All right, so now I want to show and look. The next thing that I really wanted to talk about is I do want to talk about vouchers for the certifications. If you make a 75 or higher on the first attempt on the final for this class, then you will get a voucher for both Sec Fund and Sec Ops. Okay. Now they say the voucher validity is 3 months. They've actually bumped that for everyone. I think it's 6 months now for all of them from the time they're actually issued. Students get a 60% discount. You will get a 70% discount unless you are an instructor trainer, which is someone who works at an ITC. In that case, you get an 80% discount. So make sure you make a 75 or higher on the final for Cyberops, and you will be eligible for those 2 discounts. And I did use them on mine, and they worked perfectly. So it's a very, that's a very nice thing to get from the Cisco program. It's a huge, huge advantage. Any questions on that? All right. Last thing I'm going to cover today is just the fact that at this point, you've probably been through chapter 1, you've probably worked through chapter 2, and you're into chapter 3. There's not a great deal in either one of these that I have to do. So next week I will blow through these 2 chapters, and then I'm not really going to lecture on protocols, infrastructure, or the principles, because all of those are CCNA topics, and they are also your Security Plus topics. Okay. This will also fall during the time that I'm going to be at the NCCIA conference, and I'm going to be having my ASC ITC yearly meeting on March 5th at ECU. So that'll be during the time you'll have to kind of cover that by yourself, and I won't have a class meeting that week. So we will have a class meeting next week, but I am not going to have a class meeting the week after the first week of March because of travel. All right. Are there any questions for me at this point that you have about our content, about our class flow? I obviously need to grade some labs, or I need to grade some content. So I will tell you this, be aware, this class, when you do teach it, takes a huge amount of time to grade, because the content's not just looking at whether or not they made 100 on a packet tracer. I'll be up front with you, since this is an instructor class. I do look through these pretty quickly and usually just give you 100 or a 0. But most time, if you've done the lab, you get 100. And I'll try to put some comments in where I see things that are either a little astray or things that are great. So, all right. No other questions? No questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording.